the Giants at Miami. It feels like could be very, very one-sided. It is a big over-under at 50. The majority of those points are coming from Miami, with the bookies leaning that way. Do you think this could be a boat race and therefore potentially not a great one for fantasy?
I mean, the Giants have to get going. They've got to start doing things differently to what they have been doing. You look back in preseason, and Darren Waller was getting isolated looks. They were moving around. They were making sure that he saw advantageous matchups. What we've seen so far this season has been terrible. Like, they're not using him creatively. This week was a big turning point because they lent on Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt. They gave them more snaps from the likes of Paris Campbell and Sterling Shepard and Isaiah Hodgins. The only wide receiver ahead of those two was Darius Slayton in terms of snaps. So getting those two involved would be a big improvement. I think that is something that they need to do. Having a healthy Saquon Barkley, of course, would be a massive improvement too. But this offensive line is still an absolute mess. And by the sounds of it, 3 of the Giants starters are still not practicing and are doubtful to play this week. You've got Evan Neal on the offensive line coming out and starting wars with the fans and, making horrendous comments in the press. So it wouldn't be surprising to see, I'm not saying he'd be benched, but it wouldn't be surprising to see something like that because the team seemed very unhappy with his comments as well. On the Dolphins side of it, Devon Achane, he had 13 touches last week to Mostert's 12. He's now up to the RB2 overall, is it? And Mostert is the RB4. I might have that the wrong way around. Oh, no. Yeah, that's right. So you can start both of them until Jeff Wilson gets back. I think you can be fine starting both. It feels like Devon Achane's role is so developed in a creative way that it's going to work. Last week kind of whiffed on Jalen Waddle. It felt like a Jalen Waddle week, but it wasn't to be. I do think that we are due a big performance. His usage has been good. The fantasy points have been okay, but because he's not had any touchdowns, he's languishing as the wide receiver 44, whilst Tyreek is the wide receiver 3. And I do think that can turn around. But really, this game just comes back to, can Daniel Jones stay upright? He's been hit 37 times. He was sacked 22 times over the course of the last 4 games. And he's been intercepted 6 times through 4 games, which is more than all of last year. So if the Giants can scheme things to keep Daniel Jones okay, then they have a chance. But this one feels very easy for the Dolphins.
Yeah, it feels like this could get up early and just run the ball basically to run out the clock, which we've seen Miami can run the ball and keep putting up points. We've got a question from one of our YouTube members, Ollie. He's basically saying, how do you see the backfield right now, but more importantly, moving forward? Now, I know you covered it right now. I think for me, both the guys, I think Achane's a top 12 back this week. I've got most at 18. I think if you've got them, you kind of got to plug them in your lineup. But how do you see it for the next 3-4 weeks with potentially Jeff Wilson getting thrown in the mix?
Yeah, Jeff Wilson isn't practicing yet. He was eligible to start this week, but he's not. So it's kind of going to be interesting to see what happens there. I wonder whether the Dolphins end up trading one of Mostert or Jeff Wilson at some point because they're getting more from Devon Achane than they thought they would be. They were connected to Dalvin Cook. They were connected to Jonathan Taylor. That move never really felt right to me because of how the Dolphins have invested at the running back position over the last few years. It would have been quite out of character. But it always smelled a little bit like they weren't completely confident in Achane. Whereas now, I mean, you don't put that back in the bottle. Like, surely they're going to carry on with this, and the way they use him makes up for the fact that he doesn't have that prototypical size. So I think you can start Devon Achane every week. I think you can probably start Raheem Mostert every week because we expect this offense to keep scoring points at a very high rate for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think the thing to be cautious with Achane is that he is electric. He's been phenomenal on limited touches. There is absolutely a week coming where he's going to have 10 touches for 15 yards and not score. It's just, you can guarantee it. Yes, he's electric, but there will be a defense that bottles him up. And he's never going to be a player that's going to command, Derrick Henry style 24 carry games. That's just not going to be his game. But I think that when he's as explosive as he is and have the production he has, you can't not put him in your lineup. The one thing for Dynasty I think is worth keeping an eye on, Wan'Dale Robinson, you mentioned at the top, 27% targets per route run. They want to get the ball in his hands. Every time he's healthy, we've seen this Giants offense run through him. And I think that he's a guy that you can probably go out and buy very, very cheap right now and could easily be a wide receiver 3 for you for the rest of the season. So, yeah, if you can sneak him away, maybe a third, maybe you have to pay a couple of thirds. He could be a sneaky little buy low option right now.